Good early afternoon. We are live. I'm Andy Andrews. You've joined us on the Blue Plate Special here from Wisdom Harbor Studios at the Wharf in Orange Beach. And we are having a good time today already. We got a lot to talk about. A lot of people already on. And from all over the world, there's Joyce Green from Greencastle, Indiana. That's part of the world. Judith DeWitt from windy Eastern Washington. Bob Woodall, call Bob, from Dothan, Alabama. Heather Olson, hey, from Utah. And, you're going back to the weird names. Whose name is, a kid whose name is Rocky Bullwinkle? There is no way. I mean, his last name is Bullwinkle and they named him Rocky. We did, if you're just joining us, we did a weird episode, a weird names episode last week, I think. And so that's just a holdover. But thank you, Heather, for that, for knowing somebody named Rocky Bullwinkle. And, if you're just joining us, if you're on Facebook, please click that notification button there and turn the notifications on your phone. That way, when we go live here with Wisdom Harbor with anything, you'll be notified and be able to join us. And also click that share button over there and share us to your page right now. And we'll be live on your page. Or if you're watching this later, you can share it to your page and it'll air on your page. You like the shirt? It's, let's see. It's a Life is Good shirt. This is from Sand Dollar Lifestyles. Sand Dollar is the cornerstone of the Wharf. And a big store down there that has all kinds of shirts. Look at the back of this shirt. Matt, can you show them the back? Look at that. Huh? Pretty nice. I really appreciate the people at Sand Dollar. And they have more than just shirts. They have all kind of clothes and shoes and grills. They have the Kamado Joe grills. And it's just an awesome place. If you're on YouTube, click that subscribe button for us. That would help. And hi to everybody on Instagram and on Twitter. There's Teresa Lucas Reynolds watching. Oh, you're there from Texas. I'll be darned. We have people here in the studio today, and we have them from Texas, Louisiana, and Illinois. So this is great. The Texas people brought their dog. Now, it's a 5-year-old dog? That's a beautiful dog. And he's like a golden doodle. Yeah, a labradoodle. Okay, all right. So, well, he's a pretty dog. And Marcy Crossell Taylor from Pasco, Washington, KWCL-FM radio. Hey, how are you guys? Are you just like closing down off the air? Or are we on your air? So either way, that's fine. Peter McCoy from North Toronto, Ontario. Tiffany Marie, Betty Rayford from Sacramento, Sandra Mendonica from Searcy, Arkansas, where they ate their mascot. Now, somebody asked me to explain that because every time I see Searcy, Arkansas, I say, home of Harding University, where they ate their mascot. Well, I used to work as a comedian, and I was at Harding University one time, and I was in their student center, and they had this stage set up in the student center, and right behind me on the wall is this big head of this buffalo. It was a huge bison. Hey, Kevin Perkins, old man's here. And so this big bison. And for some reason, I said something about it. It's hanging over the stage, and this thing's as big as an elephant. And so I said something about it, and people, they said, somebody said, it's our mascot. And I said, oh, so it's like so you're the bison? And this, yes, we're the bison. And so I was like, wow, that's great. And they said, that's our actual mascot. And I was like, what? And they said, yeah, some wealthy alumni gave them a baby buffalo, and they raised it and had a barbecue. So now every time I think of Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas, it's like, you ate your mascot. Okay, well, that's, I guess the tiger from LSU might be in trouble, I guess. But I think that's funny. KWCL FM radio. I'll be on next Monday. Oh, okay. All right. That's Irene. Okay. That's Irene Robinson. Hey, if you are curious about the books for veterans that we're doing, the Veterans Administration got in touch with us and asked, they give books to the veterans and their employees, and so they said, would you donate some books, because we have a lot of people that are asking for your books. And so I said, sure, we would be honored to. How many would you need? And they said 10,000 to start. Like, oh, okay. Well, so we asked for help, and there's a lot of you are helping, and we appreciate that very much. What we decided to do is all the books that we have. If you donate $10, that'll cover the cost of a hardback book, of shipping and handling and everything to get them to the VA in Washington, D.C. And so there are corporations that are pitching in, and individuals, and we've got different levels that you can. Have you got that posted, Matt? Like where somebody can get on? It's okay. Yeah, so you do. I guess I can't say it, but it's andyandrews.com/veterans, and you can either add multiples of 10 to an order from the website, or you can just go on the website and give to the veterans, and we would really appreciate that. We have today, I understand, hit 20% of the first goal of 10,000 books, and so we're very excited about that, and just a great way to give back. We're actually doing a podcast. Isn't that this afternoon, Matt, that we're going to be recording with Edgar Harold?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So we're going to be recording a podcast with Mr. Harold, who is a World War II veteran and is a survivor of the Indianapolis. So spent days in the water when so many of those guys were killed by sharks, and so he is going to talk to us about that experience and about his experiences since. And so we'll be recording that, and that'll air when? Next week or the week after?
I think that'll be next Tuesdays. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And if you're keeping up with the professional noticer, we have Joe Peachy on this week. Joe is the Global Guru's #1 sales trainer, and I've known Joe for a long time, and I've already heard a lot about this podcast episode because Joe is incredible. He's also a little bit scary, I mean, I'll just say, I used to be kind of scared of Joe. He would drive this big black car and looks kind of like a mafia person or something, but he's a great guy. He's also here's something that's not on the podcast, but he's also the only person that I have ever met who found out he was fired from a job by reading the newspaper. So he was a defensive back coach at college, and the assistant coaches would go in every morning and drink coffee, and there would be donuts there, and there would be USA Today's spread around the table. And it's before daylight. The assistant coaches are coming in; they're very quiet, and he told me one time, he said that they're just all sipping their coffee, and one of them says, "Oh crap," and they say, "What?" He goes, "We're fired." And they read in the USA Today that they had fired the head coach, and the head coach didn't even bother to tell them, and just kind of left. And so anyway, Joe was fired, but he has certainly taken that lemon and made a lot of lemonade with it. Heather Olson says she just connected with Joe Peachy. That's awesome. That's awesome. He is an incredible guy. We're going to talk today. I got to tell you what happened in the past 24 hours. I got an email like a couple of weeks ago, and this email, SB got it, and so she comes in, she goes, "You need to read this email right now." So like, okay. And the email was, Andy, my wife and I read your books, and I own a few convenience stores in Texas, and would like to talk about maybe putting your books in the stores, and his name was Beaver Applin. Like, okay. And then I see the email address, and I think, is that who? And she said, "I think so." So we Googled him really quickly, and this is the guy who founded Buc-ee's. He's the CEO of Buc-ee's, and so he and his wife were coming from their place in Jackson Hole and landed here yesterday afternoon. We spent the afternoon and evening together, and this morning together. And now they're going up to do a groundbreaking in Kentucky for a Buc-ee's up there, and then going tonight to a grand opening in North Carolina. But they're opening a lot of these places, and if you've never seen a Buc-ee's, you're missing out. This place is unreal. Alex Barasa from Kenya, Africa. Glad you are here. What time is it in Kenya? I'm just curious. Linda Harlow Martin says, yeah, Buc-ee's is the place in Texas. The first time I ever saw a Buc-ee's, I was driving along a rental car in Texas, and I looked over, I couldn't believe it. And I actually went around on the interstate to take pictures of this place to show Polly. I said, I don't know, they must have 100 gas pumps. I've never seen anything like this. And so it is amazing. And they were great people. It's Beaver and his wife, Joni. And so Joni, at one time, was a sales and marketing executive for a software company, and she was telling us that how she used the books. And so we were just kind of listening, going, that's incredible. And occasionally we hear kind of inventive ways that people use the books. And so that's what I wanted to ask you guys today. I was going to tell you some of the inventive ways that we've heard. And if you have any that you've heard of or that you've used, let us know. And then I'm going to read you a couple of stories from Sawyerton Springs, okay? By the way, Janet, we did not have any damage from the hailstorm, but some people did. I mean, the hail was the size of canned hams, or at least baseballs, and it was busting out people's windshields, their back windows. The cars looked like somebody hammered on them. It was pretty bad. So Joni told us that with her former position that she used the traveler's gift and had her leadership team come in dressed like the characters from The Traveler's Gift, and they would present their take on that decision, and dressed as I'm curious as to the person. I would love to see pictures of that. I would love to see the person who's dressed as Gabriel. But Linda Harlow Martin says, as a Gold Star wife, Stanton Sargent, killed in action on April 21st, 1971, has been married to a vet for 49 years. Thank you for sharing your books with our veterans. Absolutely. And we appreciate your service to our country too. We have, I've heard about the dressing up thing one other time. KFC hired professional actors to come in and present at a convention. We have had a lot of people use these in schools and classes, and I guess that all the books have curriculums that are free to download for any teacher, and so there are 2,500 school systems that use these books and use the curriculums. They use them in history, in creative writing classes, English, literature, and life sciences, which I guess that used to be called health. And so if you know a teacher or have a reason to download those curriculums, that's at andyandrews.com/education. And the curriculums are free. We decided to do that years ago. I had talked to a teacher, and she was saying that they were trying to get the curriculum for 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I said, oh, that sounds great. She said, yeah, we're not going to be able to do it. And I said, why not? She said, because it's $10,000 for our school. I'm like, oh. And so it just planted something in my mind at that point. And I thought, well, it can't cost that much to have a curriculum done. I didn't do them. I mean, we had real smart people do the curriculums. And so we had those curriculums done, and we continue to have them done with every book that comes out. There's even curriculums for the Kid Who Changed the World and Henry Hodges. So those books so the curriculums are K-5 through high school, and there's even some graduate college courses using them. This one is used most in history, the Heart Mender, and the Noticer. Those 3 are used mostly in the literature classes and in health science or life science. So Jerry Anderson, Glenn Ellen, hey, how are y'all doing? Glenn Ellen, are you home? Glenn Ellen, we watch her on TV all the time. And Ed Sanford, you discovered The Traveler's Gift while battling stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. You gifted this book to at least 50 people who were special to me. I still love the book and the lessons you brought in such a fun and interesting way. Thank you very much. I'm glad that helped. By the way, these books, the 11 million people, How Do You Kill 11 Million People, are still on sale today for $11. So that's on the website. And then I was going to mention this book because this one doesn't get a lot of mention. And this is my wife's favorite book that I have written, The Lost Choice. And people who read this really, really like it, and I really like it. It was the one that I wrote right after The Traveler's Gift. And I remember going through the editing process of this book. This was like probably, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. And I remember going through the editing process of this book because I put in there that they were doing a Google search for something, and the editor made me change it to a search engine because she said Google might not even be around next year. Yeah, well, that turned out to be a wise decision, didn't it? So, also, let me just tell you this, and then we'll move on to reading some stuff. Do you know that there is, who said that? Mark Overturf said The Lost Choice is awesome. Thank you. There are people who give these books away to clients and give them to students who are graduating and people who are having their first job. I've been shocked at how many times this book has been given to graduates, the kid who changed the world. So I was not expecting that.
I guess it's replacing The Places You'll Go.
Well, I don't know what they're doing to Dr. Seuss, but they may replace it. But this one is still Adam's favorite book that I've done. I'll tell you a little secret about this one. This is just kind of funny. Is there is a mistake in this book. And this one, The Heartmender, is my favorite book that I've written. And it's the story of when the German U-boats were in the Gulf of Mexico during World War II and sinking American ships and blockading the ports. So the story is about an officer on one of the U-boats who considered himself a German, not a Nazi. And he was betrayed and wounded, and when they were in close to shore being refueled one night, and he made his way to shore, and a young American war widow found him, and so she, instead of killing him, which she's about to do, he says something. I won't tell you what he says, but he says something, and she decides to hide him. And so the story is about how they hid in 1942 America and why they hid and what happened ultimately because of it. And so this story, because of how it happened and just the unfolding of it, is my favorite. But as I was reading it again, at one point I was reading some part of it, and I realized that there was a mistake in it that nobody caught. I didn't catch it, obviously. The editors didn't catch it. And I had never had anybody write in to say, hey, there's a mistake in that book. But there's a point where this captured, or this German who's being hidden, she's still mad at him. And he's sitting on the couch. And he's hungry, and somehow it says in there that she made him a pan of biscuits from scratch, and he ate the entire pan of biscuits. So do you hear the mistake? I wrote, she made the biscuits from scratch, which in 1942, how else would you have made them? There isn't any other way to make them but scratch. And so nobody would have said, I'm making these from scratch, because that's just how they were. Nobody had canned biscuits or frozen biscuits or anything. This one is just a fun book. And I hear a lot about people reading this to their families. And so, with your permission, I'm going to read you a couple of stories. Tales from Sawyerton Springs it's a connected bunch of short stories. And I say a connected bunch because they're all about the town in which I grew up, and some of it's what's happening there now, some of it's what's happened when I was a kid. And so the characters are the same in all these stories, and they recur. And so here's just this one is called Billy, Pat, Dick, and Gilligan 2. For a moment, it looked as if he was about to be killed. Backed up against the red ice chest in the bow of the aluminum boat, he picked up a paddle to defend himself. Dick Rollins knew he deserved to die for what he had done, and for that reason he almost put the paddle down. Fearfully, he glanced behind him, searching for an escape. There was none. He was trapped. There was no help within a half-mile. Dick was all alone on the backwaters of Bowman's Pond, all alone in a 12-foot boat with his former best friend, Billy Pat Williams, who was now about to end his life. Only seconds earlier, Billy Pat had been a happy man. Casting a big purple worm with his brand new rod and reel, he set the hook on the fish of a lifetime. Both Dick and Billy Pat watched open-mouthed as the huge bass jumped clear of the water. 10 pounds, Dick said breathlessly. That bass will weigh 10 pounds. Get the net, Billy Pat screamed as he reeled frantically. Dick scrambled into the bottom of the boat and retrieved the landing net just as Billy Pat guided the fish alongside. My God, Billy Pat croaked. She'll go 11, easy. Hurry up, Dick. As Dick extended the net, the trophy fish jumped again right at the boat. Surprised, Dick made a swipe for the fish and knocked it off the line. As the bass swam slowly away, Billy Pat made a move as if he were about to dive after it, but turned toward Dick instead. Dick actually felt nauseated. Had he done something minor like burning down Billy Pat's house or wrecking his car, all would have been forgiven. But this was not the case. What he had done was unpardonable. Billy Pat's eyes were wild as he stumbled over the center seat. You did that on purpose, he yelled. Moving toward Dick, Billy Pat stepped on Dick's rod, breaking it in two. And, he said, I did that on purpose. By this time, Dick had backed up as far as he possibly could and was actually leaning out over the water. Wielding the paddle in front of him, he said, You're crazy, Billy Pat. You know I didn't mean to lose that fish. Now get away from me or you're going to turn this boat over. How'd you know I was going to turn that boat over? Billy Pat asked Dick as they sat on an island in the middle of the swamp. Dick glared at him. Any idiot could have seen it was fixing to happen, you dumb butt. Of all the stupid things anybody ever did. Jeez. Both men were soaked and miserable. When the boat tilted, water had come over the side and the craft literally sank from under them. Luckily, they had been near a small strip of land when the accident occurred, and that is where they ended up. Billy Pat had saved only his tackle box. Dick still clutched the paddle. Are you still mad? Billy Pat asked. No, Dick answered. You still look mad. Well, I'm not. If you're not mad, then how come that vein on your neck's sticking out? If you don't shut up, I'm going to get mad. Both Dick and Billy Pat blamed each other for the situation in which they found themselves. Dick's view was that Billy Pat had lost control of himself and sunk the boat. Billy Pat, on the other hand, was of the opinion that had Dick not lost his fish in the first place, he wouldn't have lost control. So what do we do now? Billy Pat wondered aloud. I don't know, Dick answered. It's too far to swim, that's for sure, and it's going to be dark in an hour. The swamp is located on the eastern side of Sawyerton Springs, on the far edge of Bowman's Pond. Fed by the springs, it's more of a wooded lake than a swamp. The water there is deep and clear. Cypress trees and water oaks draped with Spanish moss give the swamp an isolated feeling, and in fact, it is rather isolated. Stretching for several miles, the backwater is broken up only by a few small areas of high ground, most of which are less than 15 to 20 yards long. It was one of these islands on which the two men were stranded. Dick and Billy Pat, best friends and neighbors, have fished together every Saturday for years. It was only last month that they decided to go in partners and buy the boat that now sat at the bottom of the swamp. It had been outfitted with a 10-horsepower motor, 2 anchors, the works. I sure am glad you insisted on those extra-large anchors, Billy Pat said dryly. Yeah, Dick answered. The whole rig did seem to sink a lot faster. What time you reckon they'll miss us? Billy Pat asked. Soon, I hope, Dick said. I'm supposed to take Kathy to Foley tonight. Getting dark, Billy Pat said. Did you tell anybody where we'd be fishing? No. Me neither. Suddenly, Billy Pat remembered the tackle box. He had put waterproof matches in one of the drawers years ago for just such an emergency. He quickly found them as Dick broke the paddle up to burn. A signal fire was just what they needed. Unfortunately, wet paddles are usually difficult to light, and this one was no exception. Billy Pat held match after match on the soaked wood until each in turn burned his fingers and was dropped. Finally, only one match was left. "Here," Billy Pat said, "you light this one. I've got some real cleaning fluid in my tackle box. I'll pour it on the wood when you strike it. Maybe that'll help." "Is it flammable?" Dick asked. Unscrewing the cap, Billy Pat replied, "I think so." As it turned out, flammable was a rather weak description of the reaction of the fluid on the flaming match. Dick heard a loud whoomp. Everything was on fire. The island was on fire, the air was on fire, even the water was on fire. Fortunately, the pair had on extremely wet clothes. Neither Dick nor Billy Pat could recall later whether they had jumped at the explosion or were actually blown into the air, but both agreed that the mushroom cloud was probably a first for Sawyerton Springs. "You look kind of strange without eyebrows," Billy Pat said. Things had settled down again, and the paddle was now the only thing burning. "I wish I had some marshmallows. You hungry?" "No." "I am." Billy Pat tried to keep the conversation going. He was in a hole now, and he knew it. For a while there, what with the netting incident and all, Dick had been feeling pretty low. His smugness was returning, however, as the moron scales tilted toward Billy Pat. Both were aware that a boat sinking and an explosion beat a lost bass any day of the week. "Remember how many snakes we used to see on these islands?" Billy Pat asked. "No, actually I had forgotten that," Dick said, "but thank you very much for reminding me." Billy Pat looked thoughtful, then said, "Guess this is probably what Gilligan felt like." Dick glanced sideways. "What?" he said. "Gilligan," Billy Pat explained. "You know, Gilligan. On Gilligan's Island. They were castaways, and we're kind of castaways, and I bet this is how he felt." Dick stared at Billy Pat. Billy Pat continued, "Did you ever wonder where they got all those clothes? I mean, it was just a 3-hour tour. Why would anybody have that many clothes on a 3-hour tour?" "I wish I had some clothes," Dick mumbled. "My pants are wet, my shirt's burned. That whole deal was really stupid, you know." "I know," Billy Pat said. "It was stupid. Like, why couldn't they get off that island? I mean, here's the professor, a guy who could build a radio out of coconut and sticks. He couldn't build a boat?" "I wish somebody'd build me a boat," Dick said. "And another thing," Billy Pat wondered. "What was Gilligan's last name?" "Who cares?" "No, seriously, think about it. They never said. Was it Gilligan Smith or Gilligan Poindexter?" Dick, in an effort to quiet Billy Pat, said, "Look, it was just Gilligan, okay? It was just plain Gilligan." After a moment of silence, Billy Pat said, "Yeah, I see. You're probably right. It was just plain Gilligan, like Charo or Cher." Dick rolled his eyes. "Will you shut up?" Then, listening closely, he whispered, "I think I hear a boat." He stood up, but after several minutes said, "Well, no, I guess not. Sorry." "That's all right. Mary Ann and Ginger always thought they were here in boats, too. By the way, I'm sorry I sunk ours." "Well," Dick said, smiling, "I'm sorry I lost your fish. She probably would have pushed 12 or 13 pounds. "No problem," Billy Pat said, chuckling. "Maybe you'll hook her next time and I knock her off for you." Dick laughed. "By the way, how are we going to get off of here? You ain't got a radio, do you?" "I ain't even got a coconut," Billy Pat said, grinning. "Hey, did Gilligan ever get off his island?" "I don't know," Dick said. He wrinkled his brow. "Seems like the show just ended and we never found out." "That's what I thought," Billy Pat said. "After all that time, they just come to the end and don't tell you anything. Did they get off the island? Did they not get off the island? Geez, I hate to be left hanging." That's the end of that one. Okay, y'all up for one more? Kimberly Jantz, gifted 150 stars. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Here's one more. This is Unfair Tales of Midway Madness. The 94th annual Kemper County Fair closed its gates late Saturday night after a successful week. Tom Henley, for one, was glad it was over. "Good gosh almighty," he explained to Billy Pat Williams. "You'd have thought we had the only fair in the world the way people crowd in here." Billy Pat agreed. At this year's co-chair of the event, it was his duty to oversee the parking situation at the fairgrounds, which was, as he put it, a job and a half. For the first time ever, the steering committee had decided not to charge $3 per vehicle as had been done in the past, but to assess $1 for every person in the vehicle. This, everyone felt, was a much more responsible method of admission. It not only made sense financially, it would end the teenagers' attempts to pack 10 to 12 kids in a single car. By all accounts, the new parking rules were a success. Billy Pat thought so because it all ran smoothly. The committee thought so because receipts were up 17%. And the teenagers thought so because 8 kids can fit in the trunk of an Oldsmobile. The fairgrounds are actually just a big field running parallel to Highway 59 outside Sawyerton Springs. Parking is, of course, just off the highway, with the main gate immediately beyond that. The livestock tents have traditionally circled the midway, giving city people the aroma of what a county fair is supposed to be in the first place. Intermingled with the livestock tents were the craft, home goods, and school science tents. An additional tent was used this year for local merchants to display and sell their wares. On Tuesday, judging was held in the home goods competition. Jan Jones won first place for her tomatoes and green beans. Glenda Perkins took a first with her ginger snap cookies, and for the 11th year in a row, Best in Show was given to the same person, Annie Ray Edwards. She won in the pickle division with a recipe calling for a hint of allspice. The recipe was given to her, she said, by her mother Clara, who lives in North Carolina. The area schools did a wonderful job with the science tent and their theme, "The Future is Ahead of Us." 200 eggs in one booth were being hatched by an electric blanket, and a corner of the tent was dedicated to showing us how we will shop in the future by using our televisions. The sign, made of Elmer's glue and red glitter, proclaimed, "Interactive TV, are you ready?" The big hit of the science tent, however, was reserved for the Henley boy. Only a junior in high school, Timmy made a water-powered lawnmower. Hooked to a garden hose, it would cut the grass and water it at the same time. Besides having his picture in the Sentinel, he won a $50 gift certificate at Norman's Grosseteria. The Future Farmers of America, in conjunction with the 4-H Club, competed for trophies and ribbons on Wednesday. Cows, horses, sheep, pigs, goats, chickens, and even rabbits were available for viewing. The auction on Thursday was lively, and more than a few animals were purchased by parents of the children who raised them. This is a yearly phenomenon. It makes no difference how often Mom or Dad said, "You know, of course, what cows are for," or "That's the part where we get the bacon." When the man from the meat packing plant is bidding on old Lulu, a sobbing child often prompts a parent to reach for the wallet. While the tent for local merchants was enthusiastically accepted by the local merchants, most of the fairgoers gave it mixed reviews. Miss Edna Thigpen of the Sentinel wrote, "Why should we go to a fair to see Norman's groceries in a booth? If I want to see one of Billy Pat's foreign cars, I'll go to his car lot. Henry's Hardware with a display of hammers and screwdrivers. Who cares? And what is Max Reed thinking about?" Actually, quite a few people wondered what Max Reed was thinking about. Max, of Max's Mortuary, had a rather large selections of coffins and tombstones on display. Most people stared for a moment, blinked, and hurried on past. Mike Martin, with his fried chicken stand next to Max, was furious. He's killing everybody's business, no pun intended. This is a fair, for God's sake. What does he think people are going to do? Does he think people are going to say, well, heck, honey, while we're here, let's go ahead and buy a casket? Jeez. With the exception of the local merchant's tent, very little has changed or is new since I was a boy. The Kemper County Fair started in 1899 as a time for farmers and their families to get together for a week and celebrate the harvest. Only years later were midway rides and attractions added. When I was an 8th grader, the rides and attractions were the fair. And there was something about the people who ran the rides and attractions that provided an element of danger to life in a small town. Fair Week was the only week during the year when people in Sargent Springs locked their doors. The roustabouts and carnies were thrust at us as an example of what could happen to our lives if we didn't do our homework. Look at that child, our parents would say. How'd you like to have that many mosquito bites on your legs? Often, being hurried down the midway, someone was pointed out as the product of an ill-spent youth. You could end up with a job like that if you don't watch it. To my way of thinking, a job like that didn't seem half bad. I had even practiced what I heard one man saying. I had it down. The gravelly monotone sounded good. I'd sit with my legs crossed at the knees, hunch up my shoulders, and say, "She's right behind this curtain, friends. She's waiting just for you. She's inside and she's alive. Nina, the headless girl. A freak of nature, the good Lord's only mistake. Nina, the headless girl. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, one thin dime will buy your time. Nina, the headless girl." Over and over I'd do it, just like the man on the midway had. The last time I did that particular bit was the first time my father heard it. Actually, there was no one in church at the time, and I still think the microphone made it sound great. The fair of my 8th grade year was special. It was the first time I was allowed freedom on the midway, no adults. Kevin Perkins, Lee Payton, and I would have run of the place. We each had $5 we'd saved for the express purpose of blowing at the fair. Our plan was to budget a small amount for food and use the rest for the important stuff. No rides. Heck, our parents let us get on the rides. We wanted to taste the forbidden fruit, sideshows, and games. None of us had ever been permitted to enter a sideshow, and we could only wonder why. Lee said it was because of nakedness. "Sure, Nina ain't got no head," he said slyly, "but I'll bet you she's got everything else." The games, on the other hand, were forbidden for an entirely different reason. They were impossible. You can't win, my father told me over and over. The people you see carrying stuffed animals around are plants. Are any of your friends loaded down with prizes? No, because you can't win. What does it take, I would think, to knock over some milk bottles with a baseball? How could you not pop a balloon with a dart? I could do it. I would do it. On Friday night, after eating several corn dogs each, we headed through the horse tent to the midway. There, grooming her barrel racer, was our English teacher from the year before. "Hi, Miss Wheeler," we said as we passed. "We're going to get you a teddy bear." She smiled and said, "Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, but I already have a teddy bear. And besides, the way those games are set up, you can't win." With that in and out of our minds, we continued on. We checked things out for about 30 minutes, then regrouped near the pig tent to discuss our options. "Well, I'm definitely knocking over them milk bottles," I said. "What are you guys going to win at?" "Darts for me," Kevin said. "I guess I'll get my mom that stuffed snake." "Aren't we going to see any sideshows?" Lee asked. "I'd kind of like to see Larry the Lizard Boy." So that was first on the agenda. Larry the Lizard Boy turned out not to be so much a boy as a full-grown man, and we agreed Miss Trotter in the 3rd grade had a skin condition much worse than Larry's. We also saw Benjamin Franklin's brain in a jar and Sam Spaniel, the man with the face like a dog. But the best was Sheba, jungle queen, raised by gorillas, captured by scientists. Sheba growled, jumped around her cage, and ate with her hands. Later, we saw her eating at the Band Boosters hamburger stand with Larry the Lizard Boy. She was still eating with her hands. Though I had almost $3 left, I had only budgeted $1 for knocking over the milk bottles. $1 was not enough. Even at a quarter per try, those milk bottles would not fall down. "Come on, kid, you can do it," the man kept telling me. "A little girl just did." It didn't make sense. I threw hard. I hit them well, but they wouldn't fall. Meanwhile, Kevin was tossing darts at balloons. When he finally popped 3, he pointed to the big stuffed snake that wrapped around the booth, but the lady running the game reached under the counter and gave him a plastic doll. "The snake's for 5 wins in a row," she said, smiling. "Ready to try again?" Lee had stayed with me and had tried the milk bottle several times himself. "If we threw together, I bet we could knock 'em off," he mumbled. The man heard him. "I'll tell you guys what," he said, looking around carefully. "Since I want you to get that teddy bear, for $3, you can both throw at the same time." We had him. We knew we had him. "Deal," we said, and ran to get Kevin. $3 was all we had between us, and as we laid it down, we laughed. Our parents would be so surprised when we did what they said could not be done. As Lee and I took careful aim, Kevin counted. 1, 2, 3, throw. We threw. Both balls hit squarely, but the bottles did not fall down. They rocked, they moved, they tilted, but they didn't fall. "Tough luck, guys," the man said. "Try again next year." "At least," Kevin remarked as we walked away, "we don't have to hear our dad say we told you so." Lee stopped. "Do you really think they'd rub it in if they found out?" "Mine would," I answered. On Sunday morning, my father preached about the end of the world. "There will be explosions," he said, "and tornadoes and earthquakes, and nothing will be left standing." Then my dad looked at me and smiled. "Nothing," he continued, "but those 3 milk bottles at the fair." All right, you guys. Thank you for joining us. Several people, Scott Hodges and Tim and Anita Pence, and 150 stars, Vanessa Moore, and Judy Atkinson. Thank you. I love reading to you. And I appreciate you guys sitting here and listening. And we'll see you Thursday. And we have a special guest on Thursday who will be showing you the greatest Mother's Day present ever. So you can get ready for that. All right. Thank you. And we'll see you Thursday.